"Mom, we have to cancel this wedding." My son Marcus whispered those words while 200 wedding guests waited in the ballroom downstairs. His hand shook as he gripped my shoulder. I stood in the bridal suite doorway, watching the woman in white adjust her veil. She hadn't heard him. The phone in my hand vibrated again. Another message from the same unknown number. The screen showed a photo I didn't want to believe. My son kissing a different woman in a hospital corridor, both of them in scrubs, her hand displaying an engagement ring I'd never seen before. "I'm Doris, and I thought I knew my son better than anyone. 32 years of raising him alone after his father died. 32 years of believing he'd grown into an honest man." The bride turned and smiled at me through the mirror. Her name was Jennifer, and until 3 minutes ago, I'd been thrilled she would become my daughter-in-law. Now everything felt wrong. "Mrs. Parker, you look worried," Jennifer said. She stepped away from the mirror, her dress rustling against the carpet. "Is everything okay?" Marcus pulled me into the hallway before I could answer. He closed the door with a soft click. His tuxedo was perfect, his boutonniere straight, but his face had gone pale. Sweat beaded on his forehead, despite the air conditioning. "Mom, I need to tell you something before this goes any further." The phone vibrated a third time. I glanced at the screen. The message read, "I'm standing outside the venue right now. Should I come in and introduce myself to the guests, or will you handle this quietly?" Below it, another photo appeared. A marriage certificate dated 8 months ago. Marcus's signature was clear at the bottom. The bride's name was listed as Rachel Okonkwo. "Who is Rachel?" I asked, keeping my voice low. Marcus's eyes went wide. He reached for my phone, but I pulled it back. His hands were trembling. "How do you know that name?" "Someone's been texting me for the last 10 minutes, I said. "Pictures, documents, everything. She says you proposed to her while you were engaged to Jennifer. She says you have hospital paperwork that proves something, though I don't know what yet." "Marcus, what did you do?" He leaned against the wall. The hallway stretched empty in both directions. I could hear music starting downstairs. The string quartet was playing the prelude. The ceremony was supposed to begin in 15 minutes. "It's not what it looks like," he said. "Then what is it?" "Rachel worked with me at Mercy Hospital," he said. His voice was barely above a whisper. "We dated for about a year. I broke it off when I met Jennifer. Rachel didn't take it well. She's been harassing me ever since." "Those photos are fake, Mom. The marriage certificate is forged. She's trying to ruin my life." I wanted to believe him. I studied his face, searching for truth in his eyes. He met my gaze without flinching, but something in his expression seemed rehearsed. The phone buzzed again. This time the message included a video. I pressed play with shaking fingers. It showed Marcus and Rachel in what looked like a courthouse. They stood before a clerk, exchanging vows. The timestamp read March 14th, 8 months ago. The video quality was too clear to be a fabrication. "Explain this," I said, turning the screen toward him. His face crumpled. The confident mask he'd been wearing shattered. "That was a mistake. We got drunk after a work party. She convinced me it would be funny to do a fake wedding ceremony. I didn't think it was legal. I swear, Mom, I didn't know she actually filed the paperwork with the county clerk." "So you are married to her," I said. The words tasted bitter. "Technically, maybe, but I never meant it," he said. He pushed away from the wall and started pacing. "I filed for annulment 2 months ago. My lawyer said it would be finalized before the wedding. Rachel must have blocked it somehow. She has connections at the courthouse." The bridal suite door opened. Jennifer stepped out, her veil trailing behind her like a white river. "Is there a problem?" she asked. Her voice was calm, but I saw tension in the set of her shoulders. "No problem," Marcus said too quickly. "Just some last-minute jitters. We'll be down in a minute." Jennifer's gaze moved from Marcus to me, then to the phone in my hand. "Doris, you're holding that like it's going to bite you. What's going on?" I hesitated. The right thing was to tell her everything, immediately. The kind thing was to pull her aside privately. The practical thing was to buy time and figure out what was real. I chose honesty. "Someone's been sending me strange messages," I said. "They claim to know Marcus from the hospital. They're making serious accusations." "What kind of accusations?" Jennifer's voice sharpened. She moved closer. "That he's married to someone else," I said. Jennifer's laugh came out brittle and forced. That's ridiculous. We've been together for 2 years. I would know if he was married. Marcus, tell her this is nonsense. It is nonsense, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? I held up the phone, showing her the courthouse video. Jennifer watched in silence. Her face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, anger, hurt. When the video finished, she turned to Marcus. The color had drained from her cheeks. Who is that woman? An ex who won't let go, he said. She created a fake wedding video to sabotage us. Mom, give me the phone. I need to call the police. This is harassment and possibly fraud. Let me see the rest of the messages first, I said. I scrolled through them slowly, each message making my heart sink a little further. There were 15 in total now, all from the same number. Each one felt like a small bomb exploding in my hands. Most contained photos that told a story I didn't want to believe. Marcus and Rachel at dinner, in a dimly lit Italian restaurant, both of them laughing at something, only they understood. The intimacy in that photo was undeniable. Marcus and Rachel in a hospital break room, sharing coffee from paper cups, their shoulders touching as they leaned over some paperwork. Marcus and Rachel standing outside a house I didn't recognize, her hand on his arm, both of them squinting into sunlight. The dates on the photos spanned from 2 years ago up to last month. 2 years, that meant Marcus had been seeing Rachel while he was with Jennifer. Or maybe he'd been seeing Jennifer while still involved with Rachel. I didn't know which version was worse. The timeline made my head spin. When had the truth ended and the lies begun? Had there ever been a moment of honesty, or had my son been living in deception for so long that he couldn't remember what reality looked like? The most recent photo showed Rachel holding a piece of paper up to the camera. I zoomed in with trembling fingers. It was a bank statement, Marcus's name printed clearly at the top. My eyes scanned down the list of transactions until I found what she wanted me to see: regular transfers of $5,000, one every month for the past 8 months, all going to an account in Rachel's name, $40,000 total. $40,000. My son had secretly sent to a woman I'd never heard of until tonight. I felt sick, not just from what I was seeing, but from what it meant. Marcus had been lying to me, not just about Rachel, not just about the courthouse wedding, but about everything: his finances, his relationships, his entire life. How many other secrets was he keeping? How deep did the deception go? The final text message was longer than the others. Ask Jennifer about the insurance policy. Ask her why she needs Marcus's hospital access credentials. The truth is in his staff locker at Mercy Hospital. Go check before you let this wedding happen. Some secrets destroy families. What insurance policy? I asked Jennifer. She blinked rapidly. I don't know what that means. I don't have any insurance policy connected to Marcus. The text says you need Marcus's hospital access for something, I said. I've never asked Marcus for anything related to his job, she said. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. This person is clearly trying to pit us against each other. Can't you see that? They're playing mind games. Then let's go check Marcus's locker at the hospital, I said. If there's nothing there, we'll know it's all fabricated lies. If there's something, we deal with it before the wedding starts. Marcus shook his head forcefully. We don't have time. The guests are waiting downstairs. The officiant is ready. We're supposed to start in 10 minutes. They can wait 15 more minutes, I said. Or we can go downstairs right now, and I can announce to 200 people that my son might be a bigamist. Your choice, Marcus. He stared at me for a long moment. Something shifted behind his eyes. Resignation, maybe, or relief that the truth was finally coming out. Fine, he said, but you're both going to see that this is all manufactured drama. We took the service elevator down to the ground floor. The venue was only 3 blocks from Mercy Hospital. Marcus still kept his staff locker there, even though he'd transferred to a different facility 6 months ago. He'd mentioned needing to clean it out, but never found the time. Now I wondered if he'd been deliberately avoiding it. The evening air was cool as we stepped outside. Jennifer's wedding dress drew stares from passers-by. A woman stopped and smiled. Congratulations, she said. Thanks, Marcus muttered without looking at her. We walked in silence. My mind raced through possibilities. Maybe Rachel really was just a vindictive ex-girlfriend creating elaborate fabrications. Maybe Marcus had made a drunken mistake years ago that was coming back to haunt him, or maybe there was something darker happening that I hadn't seen. I'd spent 32 years thinking I understood my son. Now I wasn't sure I knew him at all. The hospital lobby was busy. Despite the evening hour, families clustered around the information desk. A woman cradled a sleeping child. An elderly man sat alone, staring at nothing. The smell of antiseptic and cafeteria coffee filled the air. A security guard glanced at us as we passed. His eyes lingered on Jennifer's wedding dress. I saw him reach for his radio, then think better of it. He let us go. Marcus led us through familiar corridors. He'd walked these halls for 5 years before transferring. He knew every shortcut, every quiet corner. We passed the emergency department, where ambulances idled outside. We passed the cafeteria, where night shift workers grabbed dinner. We passed the chapel, where families prayed for miracles. His ID badge still worked when we reached the staff entrance. That surprised me. I'd assumed they deactivated badges when doctors transferred to new facilities, but maybe Marcus had kept paying for parking privileges. Maybe he'd found reasons to come back. Maybe he'd never really left. The door beeped and unlocked with a mechanical click. The locker room was empty at this hour. Day shift had gone home. Night shift was on the floors. We had the space to ourselves. Rows of metal lockers lined both walls, each one labeled with a number and a name. Some lockers had photos taped to the doors. Family pictures, vacation snapshots, motivational quotes. Marcus's locker had nothing, just the number 247 printed in black marker. His hands shook as he reached for the combination lock. I watched him spin the dial, right, left, right again. The lock didn't open. He tried again, slower this time, carefully counting each number. Still nothing. Jennifer shifted behind us, her dress rustling with impatience. "Are you sure that's the right combination?" she asked. "I'm sure," Marcus said, but his voice wavered. He tried a third time, and this time the lock clicked open. He pulled it off and set it on the bench. Then he stood there, his hand on the locker door, not opening it. "Marcus," I said gently, "whatever's in there, we need to see it." He nodded. He pulled the door open slowly, like he was afraid something might jump out. Inside, I saw the usual accumulation: spare scrubs folded on the top shelf, protein bars that were probably expired, a stack of medical journals he'd never read, but tucked behind everything, pressed against the back panel, was a large manila envelope. Marcus pulled it out slowly, like it might explode. "What is it?" Jennifer asked. Her voice had gone quiet. "I don't know," he said. But his face told a different story. He knew exactly what it was. I took the envelope from his hands before he could hide it. The seal had already been broken. Inside were multiple documents. The first was a life insurance policy in Jennifer's name, listing Marcus as the beneficiary for $2 million. The policy had been issued 4 months ago, just after their engagement. The second document was a hospital incident report dated 3 weeks ago. It described a near-fatal medication error involving a patient named Victoria Chen. The error had been attributed to a pharmacy mix-up, but someone had handwritten a note in the margin. "Check Jennifer Boyd's shift schedule and medication access logs." The third document was a photocopy of Jennifer's nursing license. Across it, stamped in red ink, were the words "suspended, pending investigation, do not practice." The fourth document was a series of bank statements showing those $5,000 monthly transfers from Marcus to Rachel. The transfers had started 8 months ago, right after the courthouse wedding video was dated. The fifth document was a letter from Rachel, handwritten on hospital stationery. I read it aloud. "Marcus, I know what you and Jennifer did to my mother. I know you altered her medical records to hide Jennifer's mistake. I know you paid off the pharmacy tech to take the blame. I know about the insurance policy. If you go through with this wedding, I'm taking everything to the medical board and the police. You have one chance to make this right. Cancel the wedding, end things with Jennifer, or watch your career and your freedom disappear." Jennifer grabbed the papers from my hands. Her face had gone from pale to flushed. "This is fake. Someone planted these. Marcus, you have to believe me. I would never hurt a patient." "Your license is suspended?" Marcus's voice came out hollow. "Since when?" "It's not suspended. Jennifer said. I mean, there was an issue, but it was resolved. This document is old. Someone's using outdated paperwork to make me look guilty. What issue? I asked. She bit her lip hard enough to leave marks. A patient complained that I gave them the wrong dosage of medication. It was a misunderstanding. The investigation cleared me completely. Then why does this say your license is still suspended, pending investigation? I don't know. Her voice rose. Maybe the paperwork isn't updated in the system. Maybe someone doctored this document. Doris, you have to understand. I would never intentionally harm a patient. I'm a good nurse. I care about my patients. Then explain the insurance policy. I said. Why would you take out a $2 million policy on yourself with Marcus as the beneficiary? I didn't, she said. I've never seen that policy before in my life. I looked at Marcus. Did you know about any of this? No, he said. But he wouldn't meet my eyes. I mean, I knew Jennifer had some complaints from a patient's family. That happens to everyone in healthcare. I didn't know there was an active investigation. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Now check the incident report date. 3 weeks ago, Marcus signed off on Victoria Chen's discharge papers early. He knew about the medication error. He covered it up to protect Jennifer. Ask him why he transferred hospitals so suddenly. Ask him about the medical board inquiry. I showed Marcus the screen. Did you? He closed his eyes and leaned against the lockers. The metal rattled. Victoria Chen is Rachel's mother. The words hung in the air. Jennifer stared at him. What? Rachel's mother was admitted to Mercy Hospital with chest pain 3 weeks ago, Marcus said. His voice was flat, defeated. It turned out to be anxiety, not cardiac issues. She was supposed to stay overnight for observation, but there was a medication error. Jennifer was her nurse that night. What kind of error? I asked. Jennifer gave her 10 times the prescribed dose of anti-anxiety medication, Marcus said. It should have been 0.5 milligrams. Jennifer administered 5 milligrams. Mrs. Chen went into respiratory depression. She almost died. I was the attending physician. I found the error in time and administered the reversal agent. Mrs. Chen survived, but it was close. Jennifer made a choking sound. That's not what happened. The pharmacy sent up the wrong dosage. It wasn't my fault. I administered what was in the labeled syringe. The pharmacy logs showed the correct dosage was sent, Marcus said. You grabbed the wrong syringe from the crash cart. You didn't double-check the label. It was human error, Jennifer. It happens, but it was your mistake. So what did you do? I asked Marcus. I panicked, he said. I knew an error like that could end Jennifer's career. I knew it would trigger an investigation that would find other issues in her record. I knew Rachel would use it to destroy us both, so I altered the medical records. I made it look like the pharmacy error was responsible. I convinced the pharmacy tech to take the blame by offering him money. I signed off on Mrs. Chen's discharge papers early, so there wouldn't be follow-up questions. You covered up a near-fatal medication error, I said. The words felt unreal coming out of my mouth. I protected the woman I love, he said. I made a choice. Maybe it was wrong, but I made it. And Rachel found out, I said. Rachel is Mrs. Chen's daughter, Marcus said. She works in medical records at Mercy. She saw everything. She put the pieces together. That's when she started the blackmail. $5,000 a month to keep quiet. $5,000 to not report us to the medical board. $5,000 to let us have a life. Until you decided to get married, I said. Until I refused to leave Jennifer, he said. Rachel wanted me to end things with Jennifer and come back to her. She said if I married Jennifer, she'd tell everything. She'd destroy both our careers. She'd make sure we went to prison for fraud and obstruction. So I kept paying her, hoping she'd eventually give up. Jennifer had sunk to the floor, her wedding dress pooling around her. Tears streamed down her face. I didn't ask you to do any of that, she whispered. I didn't ask you to lie for me. You didn't have to ask, Marcus said. I saw how scared you were. I saw how much you needed someone to protect you. So I did. By breaking the law, I said. By putting patients at risk. By paying blackmail to a woman you were legally married to. I never meant for it to go this far, he said. I thought I could fix it. I thought if I just kept paying Rachel, everything would work out. I thought my lawyer would get the annulment finalized, and Rachel would lose her leverage. I thought I could protect Jennifer, and still have the life we planned. But you couldn't, I said. No, he admitted. I couldn't. A door opened behind us. The sound echoed in the empty locker room, sharp and sudden. We all turned at once. Rachel stood in the doorway, backlit by the corridor lights. For a moment she was just a silhouette, dark and still, then she stepped forward into the fluorescent glare, and I saw her clearly for the first time. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 30 at most, pretty in an understated way, with intelligent eyes and a guarded expression. She wore jeans and a simple blouse, practical clothes that made Jennifer's elaborate wedding dress seem absurd by comparison. She carried a leather bag slung over one shoulder. Her posture was tense but controlled, like someone who'd been preparing for this confrontation for a long time. "Hello, husband," she said to Marcus. Her voice was steady, almost conversational, but I heard the edge beneath it, sharp as broken glass. "Rachel," Marcus said. He pushed away from the lockers and took a half step forward, then stopped. "You need to leave." "I'm not going anywhere," she said. She walked into the room with deliberate steps, each footfall echoing. "Not until everyone knows the truth. Not until your mother and your bride understand exactly who you are." "The truth is, you're blackmailing us," Jennifer said from the floor. Her voice had regained some of its strength, though her mascara was smudged and her carefully styled hair was coming loose. "I'm calling security right now." Rachel's laugh was bitter. "Go ahead, call them. I'll wait. And while we're waiting, I'll tell them about the medication error you covered up, about the forged medical records, about the systematic pattern of negligence that follows you from hospital to hospital like a curse." "You're insane," Jennifer said, but there was fear in her voice now, real and raw. "Am I?" Rachel pulled a folder from her bag and held it up like evidence in a trial. "But before you call security, maybe you should know that I've already filed a formal complaint with the medical board. I've sent copies of all the evidence to the state licensing board, to the hospital administration, and to 3 different attorneys who specialize in medical malpractice. I've documented everything, Jennifer. Every error, every cover-up, every lie." "You can't do that," Marcus said. His face had gone even paler. "We had an agreement. You promised—" "The agreement was that you wouldn't marry her," Rachel interrupted, pointing at Jennifer with one sharp gesture. "The agreement was that you'd leave Jennifer and try to make things right. The agreement was that you'd stop protecting someone who shouldn't be anywhere near vulnerable patients. But here we are, Marcus, at a wedding venue with 200 guests waiting downstairs. You broke our agreement, so I'm breaking mine." "Your mother is fine," Jennifer said. Her voice had turned bitter. "She didn't die. She didn't even have permanent damage. This is all revenge, because Marcus chose me over you." "My mother spent 3 days in the ICU because of your negligence," Rachel said. Her calm facade was cracking now, emotion bleeding through. 3 days on a ventilator because you couldn't be bothered to check a medication label. 3 days watching her struggle to breathe while you and Marcus scrambled to cover your tracks. Do you understand what that's like? Sitting beside your mother's bed, listening to machines breathe for her, wondering if she'll ever wake up. Wondering if the last conversation you had will be your last conversation ever." Her voice broke on the last words. She stopped, took a breath, visibly composing herself, when she continued. Her voice was quieter, but no less intense. "My mother is only 58 years old. She came to the emergency room with chest pain because she thought she was having a heart attack. She was terrified. She needed help. And instead of getting competent care, she got you, Jennifer. She got someone who cuts corners and makes mistakes, and then lets other people clean up the mess. My mother nearly died because you were careless, because you didn't follow protocols, because you thought rules didn't apply to you." "It was an accident," Jennifer whispered. "I didn't mean—" "You never mean to," Rachel said. "That's what you told the families at the last hospital, right? And the one before that? I didn't mean to. It was an accident. I'm sorry, but sorry doesn't fix anything. Sorry doesn't bring back the patients who suffered because of your errors. Sorry doesn't erase my mother's trauma." "She's alive," Jennifer said desperately. "Your mother survived. She's fine now." "Fine?" Rachel's laugh was sharp and bitter. "She wakes up every night having panic attacks. She refuses to take any medication, even for her legitimate anxiety, because she's terrified of what happened to her. She won't go near a hospital. Last month, she had what might have been a minor stroke, but she refused to call an ambulance because she's too afraid of ending up in your care again. You didn't just make a medication error, Jennifer. You traumatized my mother for life. And you too. She looked at Marcus now, her expression a mix of anger and heartbreak. You covered it up like it didn't matter, like she didn't matter. I'm sorry about your mother, I said, truly. But destroying Marcus and Jennifer won't undo what happened. Maybe not, Rachel said. But it will prevent them from hurting someone else. Do you know about Jennifer's record, Doris? Do you know this isn't her first medication error? Jennifer's head snapped up. That's confidential information. I work in medical records, Rachel said. I have access. 3 hospitals, 3 incidents, 3 medication errors in the past 5 years. None fatal, thank God. But the pattern is clear. Jennifer, you're not a bad person, but you're not a safe nurse. You're careless, you cut corners, you don't double-check, and people get hurt. That's not fair, Jennifer said. Those were all investigated and cleared. Because Marcus, or someone like Marcus, covered for you every time, Rachel said. Because you're charming and sweet, and you make men want to protect you. But eventually, your luck will run out. Eventually, someone will die, and Marcus won't be able to fix that. The room fell silent. I looked at my son, then at Jennifer, then at Rachel. 3 people caught in a web of lies and mistakes and desperate choices. 3 people who'd all done things they couldn't take back. What do you want? I asked Rachel. I want justice for my mother, she said. I want Marcus and Jennifer to face consequences for what they did. I want the medical board to investigate thoroughly so no other patients get hurt. And you want Marcus back, I said. She hesitated. Yes, I won't lie. I love him. I've loved him for years. That courthouse wedding might have started as a joke, but my feelings were real. Watching him choose Jennifer over me broke something inside me. So yes, I want him back. But more than that, I want him to be the man I thought he was. The man who wouldn't lie and cheat and cover up medical errors. I'm not that man anymore, Marcus said quietly. Maybe I never was. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. I know, she said. That's the worst part. I married a fantasy. My phone buzzed one more time. I glanced at it, expecting another message from Rachel, but this one came from a different number. It was short. Check the insurance policy beneficiary dates. Jennifer updated it last week, right after Marcus told her about the medical board inquiry. I pulled out the insurance policy document again. There, in small print at the bottom, was a section labeled Beneficiary Changes. The most recent change was dated 7 days ago. The beneficiary had been updated from Marcus to someone named Sarah Boyd. Who's Sarah Boyd? I asked. Jennifer's face went white. She didn't answer. Jennifer, Marcus said. Who is Sarah Boyd? My sister, she whispered. You changed the beneficiary away from me? Marcus's voice rose. Why would you do that? Jennifer stood up slowly. Her wedding dress wrinkled now. Because I knew, she said. I knew you'd been lying to me. I knew about Rachel. I knew the annulment wasn't finalized. I knew everything was about to fall apart. So I protected myself. By taking out a $2 million life insurance policy on yourself and naming your sister as beneficiary, I said, that doesn't make sense unless... The realization hit me like cold water. Unless you were planning something. I wasn't planning anything, Jennifer said quickly. I just wanted to make sure my family would be taken care of if something happened to me. If something happened to you, Rachel repeated. Or if something happened to Marcus. What are you implying? Jennifer's voice turned sharp. There's another insurance policy, Rachel said. She pulled more papers from her folder. A $3 million policy on Marcus's life, taken out 6 months ago. The beneficiary is Jennifer Boyd. Marcus grabbed the papers. His hands shook as he read them. When did you do this? After your mother got sick, Jennifer said to Rachel. After I realized how dangerous this situation was becoming, I needed security. Marcus, I needed to know that if everything went wrong, I'd be protected. Protected by my death? Marcus asked. That's not what I meant, Jennifer said, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Rachel said. Marcus, think about it. You're the only witness to the medication error. You're the one who altered the medical records. You're the one who paid me off. If you died, all the evidence against Jennifer would be circumstantial. She'd inherit $3 million and walk away clean. You think she was planning to kill me? Marcus asked. His voice came out strangled. I think she was planning to have options, Rachel said, and murder was one of them. That's insane, Jennifer said. She turned to me. Doris, you don't believe this, do you? I love Marcus. I would never hurt him. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think my future daughter-in-law was incapable of something so terrible, but the evidence was piling up. The insurance policies, the medication errors, the lies, the pattern of men protecting her while she moved from hospital to hospital, leaving damaged patients and covered-up mistakes in her wake. I don't know what to believe anymore, I said. A hospital security guard appeared in the doorway. Is everything okay here? He asked. No, Rachel said. It's not. I need to report a crime. The next hour passed in a blur. More security guards arrived. Then hospital administrators, then police officers. Rachel laid out everything she had: the medication error, the altered medical records, the blackmail payments, the insurance policies. Marcus and Jennifer tried to explain, tried to defend themselves, but every word seemed to make things worse. I called the wedding venue and told them to send the guests home. The wedding was canceled, permanently. By midnight, Marcus and Jennifer were at the police station, giving statements. Rachel was there too, along with her attorney. I sat in the lobby, watching through glass windows as my son's life fell apart. A detective came out and sat next to me. Her nameplate read, Detective Lisa Chang. She had kind eyes and a tired face. Mrs. Parker, I know this is difficult. Is my son going to jail? I asked. I don't know yet, she said honestly. The medical board will investigate the record tampering and the medication error cover-up. That could result in license suspension and criminal charges for obstruction. The blackmail payments complicate things because your son was technically the victim of extortion, but he was also covering up a crime. And then there are the insurance policies. Do you think Jennifer was planning to kill him? We'll investigate, she said. But insurance policies alone aren't evidence of intent. Lots of couples have life insurance. The timing and the amounts are suspicious, but they're not proof. What about Rachel? She'll face charges for the blackmail and possibly for the fake wedding if we determine she deliberately deceived your son about the legality of that ceremony. But she's also a victim here. Her mother nearly died because of medical negligence. I nodded. Everyone was a victim. Everyone was a perpetrator. No one was innocent. Can I see my son? I asked. Not yet, Detective Chang said. But soon? I sat there for another hour, maybe longer. Time felt strange, stretchy, and compressed at once. I watched through the glass as they questioned Marcus. Two detectives took turns, one male, one female, both with tired faces and patient body language. They'd done this before. I realized they'd sat across from doctors and nurses who'd made terrible choices. They knew how to wait, how to listen, how to extract truth from people who'd spent months building elaborate lies. Marcus's tuxedo was rumpled now, the fabric creased where he'd been sitting too long. His boutonniere had fallen off somewhere between the hospital and the police station. He looked young and scared and completely lost. He looked like the little boy I'd raised alone after his father died. The little boy who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, who used to ask me to check for monsters under his bed, who used to believe I could fix anything with a band-aid and a kiss. Now, he was the monster. Or maybe he was the victim. Or maybe he was both, trapped in a situation of his own making with no clear path to redemption. I thought about his father, dead 22 years now, heart attack at 38, sudden and brutal and final. Marcus had only been 10. He'd adored his father, followed him everywhere, wanted to be just like him. After the funeral, Marcus had cried himself to sleep for weeks. He'd asked me over and over, "Why did Daddy leave? Did I do something wrong?" "No, baby," I told him every time. "Your daddy loved you. His heart just stopped working. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't anyone's fault." But maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe there was fault to assign, not for his father's death, but for what came after. for the way Marcus had spent his whole life trying to save people, trying to fix broken things, trying to prove he was worthy of the love that had been taken from him, for the way he'd chosen a woman who needed saving, who let him play hero, who reinforced his belief that love meant sacrifice and protection, and covering up uncomfortable truths. Had I done that? Had I taught him that love required martyrdom? I'd worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. I'd sacrificed sleep and social life, and my own dreams to give Marcus everything he needed. I'd been so proud of my strength, my independence, my ability to carry the burden alone. But maybe Marcus had learned the wrong lesson. Maybe he'd learned that love meant carrying impossible weight, that caring for someone meant destroying yourself in the process. When they finally let me see him, it was almost 2 in the morning. We sat across from each other in a small interview room. A guard stood by the door. "Mom," Marcus said. His voice broke. "I'm so sorry." "For what specifically?" I asked. I needed to hear him say it. "For lying, for covering up the medication error, for paying Rachel blackmail, for putting you through this nightmare, for not being the man you raised me to be. Why did you do it?" "Because I loved Jennifer," he said. "Because I thought I could fix everything, because I was terrified of losing her and losing my career and losing everything I'd worked for. So I made bad choices, and then I made more bad choices trying to cover up the first ones, and eventually I was in so deep I couldn't see a way out." "Did you know Jennifer was taking out life insurance policies?" "No," he said. "I swear I didn't know. She must have forged my signature on the applications." "Do you think she was planning to kill you?" He was quiet for a long time. "I don't know," he finally said. "A week ago, I would have said absolutely not. Jennifer loves me, but now I don't know what was real and what was manipulation. I don't know if she ever really loved me or if I was just useful to her." "What happens now?" "My lawyer says I'll probably lose my medical license," he said. "The medical board doesn't tolerate record tampering. I might face criminal charges for obstruction of justice. The blackmail payments will be investigated. Best case scenario, I get probation and community service. Worst case, I go to prison for a few years." "And Jennifer?" "Her license is already suspended. The new investigation into her medication errors will probably make that permanent. If they can prove she planned to harm me, she could face attempted murder charges. If not, she might get away with insurance fraud." "And Rachel?" "Rachel will probably be fine," he said. "She reported a crime, she provided evidence, she'll be seen as a whistleblower, not a criminal. Her lawyer is already talking about her cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for immunity." I reached across the table and took his hand. "I still love you," I said. "You made terrible choices, but you're still my son." He started crying. "I don't deserve your love." "That's not how love works," I said. "You don't have to deserve it, it just is." We sat there for a while, holding hands across a table in a police station at 2 in the morning, while his wedding guests went home and his bride sat in another room facing her own reckoning. Eventually, the guard said our time was up. I hugged Marcus goodbye and walked out into the night. The air was cold and clean. Stars were visible above the city lights. I thought about calling someone, telling them what had happened, but I didn't know where to start. Instead, I drove home alone. I made tea and sat in my kitchen, staring at the wedding invitation still stuck to my refrigerator with a magnet. It felt like a lifetime ago that I'd been excited about this day. Now it felt like evidence of how blind I'd been. Over the next few weeks, the investigation unfolded. The medical board suspended Marcus's license pending a full inquiry. They opened investigations into Jennifer's history at 3 different hospitals. They found that Rachel's accusations were true. Jennifer had a pattern of medication errors, each one covered up by a different administrator or doctor who'd been charmed into protecting her. The insurance policies were investigated. Forensic accountants found that Jennifer had taken out policies on Marcus totaling over $5 million across 3 different insurance companies. None of the companies had known about the others, which violated the terms of the policies. Jennifer's signature appeared on all of them, but Marcus's signatures were determined to be forgeries. More damning evidence emerged. Jennifer's internet search history showed queries like how long does it take for life insurance to pay out and undetectable poisons and medication overdose accidents. Her text messages to her sister Sarah included discussions about what they do with the money when it comes through. Jennifer was arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and practicing nursing without a valid license. Her bail was set at $2 million. She couldn't pay it. She sat in jail, awaiting trial. Rachel's blackmail charges were dropped in exchange for her cooperation. The fake marriage certificate was deemed a misunderstanding rather than fraud, since Marcus had participated willingly, even if drunkenly. The annulment was finalized. Rachel moved back in with her mother and started therapy to deal with everything that had happened. Marcus pleaded guilty to obstruction of justice and was sentenced to 2 years probation, 300 hours of community service, and a $50,000 fine. His medical license was permanently revoked. He moved back in with me while he figured out what to do next. I spent those months oscillating between anger at my son for what he'd done and relief that he was alive, between disappointment in myself for not seeing the signs and gratitude that the truth had come out before Jennifer could act on her plans. The trial was set for 6 months after the canceled wedding. 6 months of waiting, wondering, watching my son try to rebuild some semblance of a normal life while knowing that everything could still fall apart. 6 months of depositions and lawyer meetings and evidence reviews. 6 months of Jennifer sitting in jail, unable to make bail, probably growing more desperate and dangerous with each passing day. I sat in the courtroom every day of the trial, front row, directly behind the prosecution table, where Marcus could see me if he turned around, where Jennifer could see me too. Though she rarely looked my way. The courtroom was older, one of the original buildings downtown, with high ceilings and dark wood paneling that made everything feel heavy and serious. Sunlight streamed through tall windows in the afternoon, illuminating dust motes that drifted like tiny ghosts. The prosecutors were good. A woman named Catherine Reyes led the team, sharp and methodical and relentless. She laid out the case piece by piece, building a structure of evidence so solid that Jennifer's defense team had nowhere to hide. First came the insurance policies, displayed on a screen for the jury to see. 5 policies across 3 different companies, each one showing Jennifer's forged signature alongside Marcus's, each one listing Marcus as beneficiary for millions of dollars. Then came the internet search history, printed out in stark black and white, page after page of queries that painted a damning picture. How long does it take for life insurance to pay out after death? Undetectable poisons that cause heart attacks. Medication overdose symptoms. How to make death look natural. Can autopsy detect digitalis poisoning? The jury members' faces changed as they read through the searches. Shock gave way to disgust. Disgust gave way to certainty. The text messages came next, hundreds of them, exchanged between Jennifer and her sister Sarah over the past 6 months. The prosecution displayed them chronologically, showing how the plan had evolved from vague fantasy to concrete intention. Early messages were cautious. What would we do with that kind of money? Could we really pull it off? But as the months progressed, the messages became more specific, more chilling. I've been researching methods. The key is making it look like cardiac arrest. Once it's done, we split everything, 50-50. Jennifer's defense argued that the insurance policies were legitimate financial planning, that the search history was innocent curiosity, that the text messages to her sister were taken out of context, that the medication errors were unfortunate accidents, but not criminal negligence, that Jennifer had never intended to harm anyone. The jury didn't believe it. After 3 days of deliberation, they found Jennifer guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 25 years in prison. Marcus didn't attend the sentencing. He couldn't face her, but I went. I needed to see it end. Jennifer looked small and pale in her orange jumpsuit. When the judge read the sentence, she didn't react. She just nodded once and let the guards lead her away. I waited for some feeling of satisfaction, or justice, or closure, but all I felt was sadness for everyone involved. After the trial, I went home and finally took the wedding invitation off my refrigerator. I put it in a box with other memories I didn't want to display but couldn't quite throw away. Then I called Marcus. "It's over," I said. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Tired," I said. "How about you?" "Same," he said. "Mom, I've been thinking. I want to go back to school, maybe become a teacher or a counselor, something where I can help people without the medical license I don't deserve anymore." "That sounds good," I said. "I'm also going back to therapy," he said. Dr. Morrison thinks I have some codependency issues I need to work through. She says I have a pattern of trying to rescue people who don't want to be rescued. That's probably accurate, I said. Yeah, he said. I'm sorry I put you through all this. I know, I said. But we're going to be okay. It'll take time, but we'll get there. Thanks for not giving up on me, he said. That's what mothers do, I said. We hung up. I sat in my quiet house and thought about everything that had happened, about the text messages that had arrived just in time, about Rachel's anger that led to exposure, about Jennifer's greed that led to her downfall, about Marcus's misguided love that nearly destroyed him, and about me, standing in a hallway with a phone full of secrets, making the choice to look instead of turning away. 6 months after the trial, Rachel came to visit me. She showed up at my door one Saturday morning, holding a coffee and looking nervous. I hope it's okay that I'm here, she said. It's fine, I said. Come in. We sat in my living room. She looked better than the last time I'd seen her. Less angry, more at peace. I wanted to thank you, she said, for believing me that day at the hospital, for not dismissing me as a crazy ex-girlfriend. I know a lot of mothers would have defended their sons no matter what. I didn't know who to believe at first, I admitted, but the evidence was pretty clear once I looked at it. Still, she said, you chose truth over comfort. That takes courage. We talked for an hour about everything that had happened. She told me about her mother's recovery, both physical and emotional. She told me about her new job at a different hospital in a different department. She told me about the man she'd started dating, a kind accountant who had no connection to medicine or drama. I'm letting go of Marcus, she said. Finally, I spent so long thinking he was the answer to everything, but he was just a person, flawed, like everyone else. I built him up into something he never was. That's very mature, I said. Therapy helps, she said, with a small laugh. When she left, I felt something shift inside me. A weight I didn't know I was carrying, lifted slightly. Maybe we were all going to be okay after all. Marcus eventually enrolled in a graduate program for counseling psychology at the State University. It took him months to decide. Months of researching programs and writing application essays and confronting the reality that his medical career was over forever. The admissions committee almost rejected him when his criminal record came up in the background check, but his application essay was honest and raw and powerful. He wrote about his mistakes, about the price he'd paid, about what he'd learned from destroying his life and having to build a new one from scratch. One professor on the committee fought for him, Dr. Sarah Morrison, a trauma specialist who'd spent 20 years helping people recover from their worst choices. She saw something in Marcus's essay that resonated with her own story, some echo of redemption that made her believe he could turn his pain into purpose. She called him personally to tell him he'd been accepted. Marcus cried on the phone, the first time I'd heard him cry since the night in the police station. He worked part-time at a nonprofit organization that provided mental health services to low-income families. The pay was terrible, barely enough to cover his student loans and living expenses. But the work was meaningful in a way his hospital job had never been. He sat with people in crisis, listened to their stories, helped them navigate systems that seemed designed to crush hope. He was good at it. His clients loved him. They left reviews calling him compassionate, understanding, someone who really gets it. I asked him once what he told his clients when they asked about his background. He said he was honest. I tell them I made terrible choices that hurt people. I tell them I lost everything and had to start over. I tell them I understand what it's like to feel like you've ruined your life and there's no way back. And then I tell them there is a way back. It's hard and it's slow and it hurts. But it's possible. He dated occasionally during those years, but nothing serious. Casual coffee dates with women he met through school or work, conversations that never quite turned into relationships. He said he wasn't ready. He said he needed time to figure out who he was when he wasn't trying to rescue someone. Dr. Morrison worked with him on his codependency issues, on his tendency to choose partners who needed saving, on his belief that love required sacrifice and martyrdom. I started volunteering at a local domestic violence shelter. I figured I'd learned something about recognizing manipulation and dangerous patterns. Maybe I could use that experience to help others. A year after the wedding that didn't happen, I threw away the box with the invitation. I didn't need to keep it anymore. The lesson had been learned. The memories had been processed. It was time to let go. Marcus came over for dinner that night. We cooked together, something we'd done when he was younger. We talked about his classes and his clients and his hopes for the future. He seemed lighter, more genuine, more like the person I'd always hoped he'd become. "I've been thinking about Dad lately," he said, as we washed dishes. "What about him?" "About how he died so suddenly," Marcus said. "About how you handled it. You were so strong, Mom. You kept going even when everything was falling apart. I don't think I ever appreciated that." "You were 10, I said. "You weren't supposed to appreciate it. You were supposed to be a kid." "Still," he said, "I see it now, and I want you to know that I'm trying to be more like you, strong and honest and willing to do the hard thing even when it hurts." I hugged him. "You're getting there," I said. 2 years after the canceled wedding, I got an email from Jennifer's sister, Sarah. She said Jennifer had been granted a new trial based on some technicality with jury selection. She said Jennifer was still maintaining her innocence. She said the family was standing by her. I didn't respond. It wasn't my fight anymore. Marcus heard about it through his lawyer. "Do you think she'll get out?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. "But if she does, she's not your problem." "I know," he said. "I've moved on. She's part of my past, not my future." The second trial ended with another guilty verdict. Jennifer went back to prison to serve out her sentence. I felt relieved, but also sad. So many lives damaged, so many futures altered, all because people made selfish choices and other people covered for them. 3 years after the wedding that didn't happen, Marcus got engaged to a woman named Angela. She was a high school art teacher with a warm laugh and no connection to the medical field. They dated for 2 years before he proposed. They wanted a small wedding, just family and close friends. "Will you be okay with this?" Marcus asked me. "After everything that happened last time?" "Last time you were marrying someone who wanted to kill you," I said. "This is different." "How do you know?" he asked. "Because I've spent time with Angela," I said. "I've seen how she treats you, how she challenges you when you're wrong and supports you when you're trying, how she has her own life and doesn't need you to rescue her. She's a real person, Marcus, not a fantasy." "She is," he said, smiling. "She's pretty great." The wedding was small and lovely, 50 people in a garden on a sunny afternoon. Rachel sent a card, wishing them well. Jennifer wasn't mentioned. It was like she'd never existed. I watched Marcus and Angela exchange vows and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope that my son had learned from his mistakes. Hope that he'd found something real. Hope that the worst was behind us. At the reception, Angela came up to me. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For raising a man who's willing to work on himself," she said. "Marcus told me about everything that happened. He didn't hide it or make excuses. He owned his mistakes and showed me how he's changed. That's rare. He's a good man who made bad choices," I said. "I'm glad he found someone who can see the difference." "So am I," she said. 4 years after the canceled wedding, Marcus and Angela had a baby, a little girl they named Charlotte Rose. After both grandmothers, I held her in the hospital for the first time, just hours after she was born. This tiny, perfect creature with her father's eyes and her mother's chin. She weighed exactly 7 pounds, with a full head of dark hair and fingers so small they couldn't quite wrap around my thumb. She smelled like hope and new beginnings and second chances. I stood beside Angela's hospital bed, cradling Charlotte, while Marcus filled out paperwork at the nurse's station, and I thought about all the paths that had led to this moment. The lies and the truth, the mistakes and the growth, the wedding that didn't happen and the wedding that did, all of it. Every painful step had been necessary to bring us here, to this room, this baby, this family that wouldn't exist if I'd made different choices 4 years ago. "She's perfect," I said to Angela, who was watching us with tired, happy eyes. "She is," Angela agreed. She shifted in the hospital bed, wincing slightly from the aftermath of labor. "Marcus wants you to be at every important moment in her life. He wants Charlotte to know her grandmother, the way he knew his mother. He wants her to understand that family means showing up, especially when things are hard." I felt tears prick my eyes. "I'll be there," I promised, "for everything." And I was. I was there for Charlotte's first steps, taken in my living room on a sunny Tuesday morning when she was 11 months old. I was there for her first words, which were Mama and Dada, and then, inexplicably, Cookie. I was there for her first day of preschool, watching her march into the classroom with a backpack bigger than she was, fearless and excited and ready for adventure. Marcus and Angela raised Charlotte with intention and honesty. They didn't hide the difficult parts of Marcus's past from her. As she grew older, they told her age-appropriate versions of the story, using it as a teaching tool about integrity and consequences, and the importance of telling the truth, even when it's hard. When Charlotte was 8, Marcus sat her down and explained that he used to be a doctor, but had lost his license because he made bad choices. "What kind of bad choices?" Charlotte asked. "I lied to protect someone I cared about," Marcus said. "I thought I was helping her, but I was actually making things worse, and I broke rules that are supposed to keep patients safe." "Did people get hurt?" Charlotte asked. "Yes," Marcus said. "One person almost died because of mistakes that I helped cover up." Charlotte thought about that for a while. Then she said, "But you learned better, right? That's why you're a counselor now, instead of a doctor." "That's right," Marcus said. "I learned that helping people means telling the truth, even when the truth is scary, even when it means losing something important." 5 years after the canceled wedding, I ran into Rachel at a coffee shop. She was with a man and a little boy. She introduced them as her husband and son. We chatted for a few minutes about nothing important. She seemed happy, content, like she'd found peace. "I heard Marcus got married," she said. "I'm glad. He deserves to be happy." "So do you," I said. "I am," she said. Finally. 6 years after the canceled wedding, Jennifer was denied parole. She would serve at least 10 more years before being eligible again. Marcus didn't go to the hearing. He'd moved on completely. Jennifer was a chapter in his past, closed and filed away. 7 years after the canceled wedding, I retired from my job and started writing a book about my experiences, about being a mother who had to choose between protecting her son and doing the right thing, about the difficulty of seeing clearly when love clouds your judgment, about the courage it takes to face uncomfortable truths. The book was published the following year. It sold moderately well. I did some speaking engagements at parent groups and healthcare conferences. People wanted to know how I'd known to trust my instincts that day, how I'd found the strength to investigate instead of ignore. "I didn't feel strong," I told them. "I felt terrified, but I knew that ignoring the truth wouldn't make it go away. It would just make it worse." So I looked, and looking saved my son's life. 8 years after the canceled wedding, Marcus opened his own counseling practice. He specialized in helping people navigate difficult family situations and destructive relationship patterns. He was good at it. His clients loved him. He turned his mistakes into wisdom and his pain into purpose. 9 years after the canceled wedding, Charlotte started school. She was bright and curious and kind. She didn't carry the weight of her father's past. She was just a happy little girl with a loving family and a bright future. 10 years after the canceled wedding, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Stage 2, the oncologist said, treatable, but serious. I would need surgery, chemotherapy, possibly radiation. The prognosis was good if we acted quickly and aggressively. I was 72 years old. I'd survived a dead husband, a criminal son, a canceled wedding, and a near-murder plot. Now I had to survive this. Marcus and Angela took care of me through everything. They drove me to appointments when the fatigue made it impossible to drive myself. They sat with me through 6-hour chemotherapy sessions, taking turns reading aloud from books I'd always meant to read but never had time for. They cleaned my house and cooked my meals and held my hand when I vomited from the medication. Charlotte, who was 8 by then, drew me pictures of rainbows and flowers and superheroes fighting cancer cells. She taped them to my refrigerator until there was no white space left. The hardest part wasn't the physical pain, though that was substantial. It wasn't the nausea or the hair loss or the bone-deep fatigue that made every movement feel like climbing a mountain. The hardest part was the fear, the creeping, constant terror that I wouldn't survive, that I'd leave Marcus alone again, that I'd never see Charlotte grow up, that everything I'd fought for would be cut short by cells that had forgotten how to die. One day during my recovery, Marcus and I were alone in my living room. I was weak from treatment, but feeling better than I had in weeks. The nausea had finally subsided. My appetite was returning. I could sit up without feeling like the room was spinning. I've been thinking, Marcus said carefully, about that day 10 years ago, about the text messages and the hospital and everything that came after. What about it? I asked. I never really thanked you properly, he said. His voice was quiet, serious. For stopping me from making the biggest mistake of my life, for being brave enough to push past my denials and find the truth, for saving me from Jennifer and from myself. Mom, I could have died. Jennifer was actually planning to kill me, and I was so blinded by what I thought was love that I couldn't see it. If you hadn't pushed, if you hadn't investigated, if you hadn't insisted we check that locker, I'd be dead. Charlotte wouldn't exist. Angela would never have met me. None of the good things in my life would be real. You don't know that for sure, I said, though my voice caught on the words. I do, he said firmly. The prosecutor showed me evidence during the trial that I haven't told you about. Jennifer had already purchased the medications she was planning to use. Special order from a veterinary supply company, bought under a fake name. She'd researched how to administer them to make it look like a sudden cardiac event. She had a timeline. She was going to do it 3 weeks after the wedding, during our honeymoon in Hawaii, somewhere remote where emergency services wouldn't arrive in time. I felt cold, despite the summer heat. I'd known Jennifer had been planning something, but hearing the specifics made it real in a way it hadn't been before. She was going to kill you on your honeymoon, I said. On a hiking trail, Marcus said. We talked about hiking the Naupali coast. She was going to give me the medication in my water bottle, wait until we were miles from help, then call for emergency services and play the grieving widow. By the time help arrived, I'd be dead. Cardiac arrest brought on by overexertion and heat. Or so it would seem. No autopsy would have found the medication, unless they were specifically looking for it. But you're here, I said. You're alive. Because you saved my life, Mom. Because you got those text messages, and you chose to look instead of ignoring them. Because you insisted we investigate even when I tried to stop you. You literally saved my life. I hadn't known that detail. No one had told me how close it had been. I'm glad I trusted my instincts, I said quietly. Me too, he said. We sat in silence for a while, watching Charlotte play in the yard through the window. She was pushing a toy lawnmower around, pretending to cut the grass. Her laugh floated in through the open window. That's what it was all for, I said, pointing at Charlotte. Every hard choice, every uncomfortable truth, every moment of standing up when it would have been easier to sit down, it was all for this. For her, for the future that wouldn't have existed if we'd let the lies continue. Thank you, Marcus said again, for everything. You're welcome, I said. Now help me up. I want to go play with my granddaughter. He helped me outside. Charlotte ran over and hugged my legs. Grandma, watch me mow. I watched her push the toy around the yard, her face serious with concentration, and I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The text messages that arrived just in time, the courage to investigate instead of ignore, the strength to face uncomfortable truths, the wisdom to choose what was right over what was easy. And I thought about the wedding that didn't happen, and how sometimes the best day of your life is the day you say no. The cancer went into remission 6 months later. I celebrated by taking Charlotte to the zoo. We looked at elephants and tigers and flamingos. She held my hand and asked a million questions about every animal we saw. I answered every one, grateful to be alive to have these moments. 11 years after the canceled wedding, Rachel published a book of her own. It was a memoir about her experience with medical negligence and the justice system. It became a bestseller. She went on a book tour and was interviewed on major news programs. She turned her trauma into advocacy, pushing for better oversight of medical professionals and stronger protections for patients. I bought her book and read it in one sitting. She was fair in her portrayal of Marcus, acknowledging his crimes but also his growth. She didn't mention Jennifer by name, calling her only the woman who nearly destroyed multiple lives. The focus was on systemic failures and how one person's determination to find truth could change everything. 12 years after the canceled wedding, Jennifer was released from prison on medical parole. She had terminal cancer and was given 6 months to live. Her sister Sarah contacted Marcus to let him know. Jennifer wanted to apologize, she said. She wanted to make amends before she died. Marcus thought about it for a week, then he declined. I forgave her years ago, he told me. But forgiveness doesn't mean I have to give her access to my life. Some doors need to stay closed. I supported his decision. Some people thought he was cruel. I thought he was wise. He'd worked too hard to build a healthy life to risk it for someone who'd once planned to end it. Jennifer died 4 months later. Marcus didn't go to the funeral. He sent flowers with a card that said simply, "I hope you found peace." 13 years after the canceled wedding, Charlotte became a teenager. She was smart and strong-willed and compassionate. She wanted to be a doctor, ironically. Marcus worried about it, given his history, but Angela convinced him to support her dreams. "She's not you," Angela said. "She'll make her own choices and her own mistakes. All we can do is raise her to value integrity and honesty. The rest is up to her." Marcus agreed. Charlotte started volunteering at the same nonprofit where Marcus had worked years ago. She was good with the clients, patient and kind, and genuinely interested in helping. Maybe, I thought, something good could come full circle. 14 years after the canceled wedding, I turned 75. My family threw me a surprise party. Friends and relatives came from all over. Rachel sent a beautiful bouquet with a card that said, "Thank you for being brave. You changed my life." I looked around the room at my son, his wife, their daughter, the friends I'd made, the life I'd built, and I thought about that day 14 years ago when everything could have gone so differently. If I'd ignored those text messages, if I'd believed Marcus's lies, if I'd prioritized the wedding guests over the truth, if I'd been a different kind of mother, but I hadn't. I'd chosen to look, to question, to investigate. I'd chosen truth over comfort. And because of that choice, my son was alive, my granddaughter existed, my family was whole and healthy and real. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus asked, coming up beside me. "About how lucky we are," I said. "We are," he agreed. "But luck had nothing to do with it. You made good choices when it mattered. That's not luck. That's character." Maybe he was right. Maybe the choices we make in moments of crisis define us more than anything else. Maybe being brave when it would be easier to hide is what separates a good life from a wasted one. Or maybe I was just a mother who loved her son enough to save him from himself. Either way, I was grateful. Grateful for the text messages that arrived just in time. Grateful for the courage to face uncomfortable truths. Grateful for the strength to do what was right even when it hurt. Grateful for the 14 years of life that followed a wedding that never happened. The party went late into the night. People told stories and laughed and celebrated. Charlotte gave a toast about her grandmother, who taught her that doing the right thing was always worth it, even when it was hard. I looked at my granddaughter standing there, so confident and brave and full of life, and I knew that the lesson had been passed down successfully, that the next generation would be stronger for what we'd been through, that the mistakes and the growth and the hard-won wisdom would continue beyond me, shaping Charlotte and whoever came after her. The cycle of honesty we'd fought so hard to establish wouldn't end with Marcus or with me. It would continue, generation after generation, a legacy more valuable than money or property or anything else I could leave behind. Marcus had learned to value truth over comfort. Charlotte was learning the same lesson, and someday, when she had children of her own, she would teach them too. That was the real gift of that terrible day 14 years ago. Not just that Marcus had survived, but that he'd learned something worth passing on. As the party wound down and people started to leave, I stood on my front porch watching the stars. Marcus joined me. 14 years, he said. Hard to believe it's been that long. Best 14 years of my life, I said. Even with the cancer and the scares and all the work. Mine too, he said. Mom, I want you to know something. Every good thing in my life came from that day you stopped my wedding. Every bit of happiness, every moment of peace, every real connection, it all started when you chose truth. I just did what any mother would do, I said. No, he said. You did what every mother should do but most don't. You put truth ahead of comfort, reality ahead of fantasy, my future ahead of your present. That's not common. That's extraordinary. We stood there together, mother and son, survivors of a crisis that could have destroyed us, but instead made us stronger. The night was cool and clear. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new joys, but tonight we could rest in the knowledge that we'd survived the worst and come out better for it. I thought about Jennifer in her grave, her dreams of wealth and freedom buried with her. I thought about Rachel building a new life from the ashes of her pain. I thought about Marcus, once lost, now found. I thought about Angela and Charlotte and the family that wouldn't exist if I'd made different choices. And I thought about that moment in the hallway, phone in hand, choosing to look at messages I didn't want to see. That one choice, that one moment of courage, had cascaded into everything that followed. The investigation, the exposure, the trial, the recovery, the growth, the healing, the 14 years of real life instead of lies. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is open your eyes when closing them would be easier. Sometimes love means saying no when yes would be simpler. Sometimes saving someone means stopping them from getting what they think they want. I'd learned all of that 14 years ago in a hallway outside a bridal suite while 200 guests waited for a wedding that would never happen, and I'd been learning from it ever since. Every day, choosing truth and courage and difficult honesty over comfortable lies. Marcus hugged me goodnight and went inside. I stayed on the porch a while longer, listening to the sounds of my quiet street, feeling grateful for every moment of the messy, complicated, beautiful life that had unfolded from one brave choice. The wedding didn't happen, but everything else did, and that, I thought as I finally went inside, was more than enough.